Today, NVIDIA is one of the most valuable companies in the world. Its technology powers everything from video games to self-driving cars and artificial intelligence. Its CEO, Jensen Huang, is one of the wealthiest people on the planet. Looking at NVIDIA today, it's easy to think success was inevitable, but it wasn't. There was a time when NVIDIA was losing money. Its products weren't selling the way the company had hoped. Competitors were catching up, and many people believed NVIDIA wouldn't survive. One wrong decision, one more failure, and the company we know today might not even exist. So how did Jensen Huang save NVIDIA from failure? Was it luck? Was it perfect timing? Or was it a single decision that changed everything? The answer isn't just a lesson about business, it's a lesson about resilience, leadership, and knowing when to bet on your own vision. Let's break it down in the simplest way possible. To understand how NVIDIA was saved, we first have to understand the man behind it. Jensen Huang didn't grow up surrounded by billion-dollar companies. Long before he became one of the richest people in the world, he was simply an engineer with a big dream. In 1993, Jensen Huang and two friends started a company called NVIDIA. The idea was ambitious. They wanted to build computer chips that could create faster, better, and more realistic graphics for computers and video games. Today, that might not sound like a big deal, but back then, the industry was crowded. Big companies already dominated the market. NVIDIA was just a tiny startup with a handful of employees, limited money, and a dream that many people thought was impossible. Every dollar mattered, every customer mattered, every product mattered, because if even one major product failed, the company could be in serious trouble. And that's exactly what happened. Some of NVIDIA's early products didn't perform the way the company had hoped. Sales were disappointing. Money was disappearing, pressure was building. Imagine putting everything you've worked for into one company, working day and night, convincing investors to believe in your vision, only to watch your bank account shrink month after month. Now imagine having employees who trusted you, families depending on their jobs, investors expecting results, customers waiting for better products. That's the kind of pressure Jensen Huang was facing. Then came the moment every entrepreneur fears. NVIDIA was running dangerously low on cash. According to Jensen Huang himself, the company had roughly enough money left to survive for about a month. 1 month. Think about that. Not 1 year, not 6 months, just 1 month. Imagine waking up every morning knowing your dream could disappear before next month's bills are even due. Imagine having to look your employees in the eye and knowing you might not be able to pay them. Most people would have started looking for an exit. Some would have sold the company. Others would have accepted defeat and walked away. After all, who would blame them? From the outside, it looked like NVIDIA had run out of time, but Jensen Huang saw something that almost everyone else missed, and instead of giving up, he made one of the most important decisions in the company's history. It helped change the future of technology forever. So, what was the decision that saved NVIDIA? Believe it or not, it wasn't inventing a revolutionary product overnight. It wasn't finding a billionaire investor. And it definitely wasn't luck. Instead, Jensen Huang did something that many leaders struggle to do. He admitted that the company needed to change. Rather than trying to build every kind of computer chip, NVIDIA decided to focus on one thing: graphics. It sounds obvious today, but back then, it was a huge gamble. Imagine opening a restaurant. Your menu has burgers, pizza, tacos, pasta, seafood, and desserts, but customers aren't impressed. Nothing really stands out. Now imagine removing almost everything from the menu. and deciding you're going to make the best burger in town. Some people would think you're limiting yourself, but others would say you're finally focusing on what you do best. That's exactly what NVIDIA did. Instead of trying to compete in every corner of the technology industry, the company focused on building the world's best graphics processors. That decision changed everything. Engineers became more focused. Resources were spent on improving one core product instead of spreading themselves too thin. Things began to improve. Gamers started noticing. Computer companies started paying attention. Developers began choosing NVIDIA's technology. For the first time, people weren't just buying NVIDIA because it was another option. They were buying it because they believed it was the best. And here's the part one find fascinating. Jensen Huang wasn't trying to build an AI company. He wasn't thinking about ChatGPT. He wasn't thinking about robots. He was simply trying to build the best graphics chips he possibly could. But sometimes, when you spend years becoming the best at one thing, you accidentally become perfectly positioned for something much bigger. Years later, researchers discovered that NVIDIA's graphics chips weren't just great for video games, they were also incredibly good at training artificial intelligence. Suddenly, the same company that had once been fighting just to survive found itself at the center of one of the biggest technological revolutions in history. The world changed, and because NVIDIA had spent decades mastering one thing, it was ready when that moment arrived. It's funny how success works. The thing that almost caused NVIDIA to fail eventually became the reason it dominated the world. For years, NVIDIA was known as the company that made graphics cards for gamers, and to a lot of people, that didn't sound very exciting. Video games, really? How could that ever become one of the world's biggest businesses? But Jensen Huang wasn't chasing whatever was popular at the time. He believed that if NVIDIA kept making better and better graphics processors, the opportunities would eventually come. And that's exactly what happened. As technology evolved, scientists and engineers discovered that NVIDIA's chips could do much more than create realistic graphics. They could solve incredibly complex calculations, the kind of calculations needed for artificial intelligence. Almost overnight, demand exploded. Tech companies around the world suddenly wanted NVIDIA's chips, not for gaming, but for building the future of AI. Companies racing to develop smarter AI systems needed enormous computing power, and NVIDIA had spent decades building exactly the kind of technology they needed. Think about that for a second. The company that once struggled just to stay alive ended up becoming one of the most important companies in the AI revolution, not because it changed overnight, but because it spent years preparing for a future that nobody could fully see. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons from Jensen Huang's story. People often think success happens in one big moment, one lucky break, one viral idea, one perfect opportunity. But in reality, success usually looks much less exciting. It's years of hard work, years of improvement, years of believing in your vision, even when almost nobody else does. By the time the rest of the world noticed NVIDIA, Jensen Huang and his team had already spent decades getting ready for that moment. So, how did Jensen Huang save NVIDIA from failure? At first, it might seem like the answer is simple, but the more you look at the story, the more you realize it wasn't just one decision. It was years of making difficult choices, choosing to stay focused when everyone else was chasing the next big thing, choosing to improve instead of giving up, choosing to keep believing in a vision even when success seemed impossible. And maybe that's the biggest lesson of all. Most people think successful companies are built overnight. They're not. They're built one decision at a time, one product at a time, one setback at a time, one lesson at a time. If Jensen Huang had given up when NVIDIA was running out of money, there might not be an NVIDIA as we know it today. There might not be the AI revolution we're witnessing today. Sometimes, the difference between failure and extraordinary success isn't talent, it isn't luck, it's simply having the courage to keep going when quitting seems like the easier choice, and that's what I admire most about Jensen Huang, not that he became one of the richest people in the world, but that he refused to let one difficult chapter become the end of the story, because the truth is, success isn't about never failing. It's about refusing to let failure have the final word. Don't forget to subscribe to Richest in the World. Every week, we'll explore the stories, decisions, and ideas behind the world's wealthiest people, biggest companies, and strongest economies, and explain them in the simplest way possible. Thanks for watching, and remember, the world becomes a little less confusing when you understand how money really works.